I'll give you an inside info. And
Uh-huh.
again, you've done a lot of work, but I'm sure you don't have this one. Um, so of course, we are very, very fortunate to have Harvard Management Fund in our cap table. But on top of having invested in Chari, they've also written a business case about Chari, and I'm happy to share it here with you. You can go on hbs.chari.com and you will be able to read the business case Harvard University has written
Cool.
about Chari.
That was the voice of Ismael Belkhayat, co-founder and CEO of Chari. I am your host, Ali Zwail, and this is the Startups Arabia podcast, where you learn about the Arab startups ecosystem from the best founders, investors, and operators in the region. Welcome to the Startups Arabia podcast. My guest today is Ismael Belkhayat, a serial founder from Morocco. After his time consulting at the Boston Consulting Group, Ismael founded two companies in Morocco, the venture builder Wibco and VotreChauffeur, a ground transportation company in Morocco later acquired by Avis Car Rental. Of course, Ismail will pronounce VotreChauffeur much better during the interview. Anyway, he then went on to found Sarouty, a real estate marketplace. Within 2 years, Sarouty became the leading real estate platform in the country and partnered with Propertyfinder, the huge regional PropTech startup, to scale its tech and expand to additional locations. Most recently, in 2020, Ismail co-founded Chari with his wife, Sophia Alj, herself a former McKinsey consultant. Chari is a B2B e-commerce and fintech app for small retailers. Chari has since grown considerably, joining YC, raising over $10 million of funding in several markets entered in French-speaking Africa. Both Chari, Ismail, and Sophia have received many recognitions, including Disruptor of the Year from the Africa CEO Forum. In this exceptional interview, Ismail generously shares best practices and some never before heard secrets about Chari. It's a very inspiring conversation. Enjoy. Welcome to Startups Arabia podcast. My guest today is Ismail from Chari. He's the co-founder and CEO of Chari, and I'm extremely excited to have this conversation with him because he's just covered so much ground over the last few years, from two exits, starting a startup studio, doing several acquisitions, several funding rounds, growing into several countries, things like that. So I mean, there's a lot to cover, I assure you, and I just hope that we have enough time to cover it. Welcome, Ismail.
Thank you for the invitation, Ali. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Great. So maybe we could just ease into the interview, take a few minutes just to tell me how you went into the world of startups. I know you started in management consulting. So, I mean, how did you end up in startups and why did you start Chari?
Yes, indeed. I started my career as a strategy consultant. Back at that time, I was working for BCG, so the Boston Consulting Group, first in the office of Paris, and then I moved to the office of Casablanca. And my whole life, I was told here are the right things to do. When you are in high school, they tell you for your baccalaureate, you need to do a scientific major, and then they tell you you have to go to a prep school so you can get to the best universities. And when you get to the best universities, they tell you you need to keep working hard so you can make it to these best employers who themselves have their own selection. And then you make it to these big companies, and then you realize that you still need to work hard, because if you want to make it to partner, you need again to be among the top performers. And one day you wake up, you are probably 26, 27, and you realize that your whole life was just following what the others have been telling you. And myself, I woke up, I did a kind of introspection. I asked myself who I really were and what I really wanted to do and what was my passion. And I realized that reality was I am a geek. And when you are a geek, right, and you don't want to work anymore in your life, you do something related to technology. And this is how I decided to become a tech entrepreneur, and how I started about 8-9 years ago.
Okay, and why did you start Chari's?
Yeah, so first 8-9 years ago, I started again as a tech entrepreneur. My first venture was a prop tech. I started the first real estate portal here in Morocco. And by the way, I teamed up with an amazing company based in Dubai called Propertyfinder. These guys are just amazing and building, I believe, one of the best group of the region. So the portal was quickly successful, became the leading portal. So it was a marketplace. Then I started a ground transportation company, a kind of Uber-like, called VotreChauffeur, that got acquired by Avis Rental Cars. So VotreChauffeur is logistic. The property portal is marketplace. And when you mix both these two expertises, right, marketplace plus logistic, it gives you basically Chari, which is again a mobile app for the local no-name independent mom and pop shops, the grocery stores you find around the corner, what we call the bakalas. So we provide them with this app, allowing them to order anything they want, and we make sure to deliver the goods to them in less than 24 hours. So that's basically how we started Chari. Obviously, myself, I had my own experience. We say that when you want to start a startup, you have to find a problem, and I found the problem by going myself to a shopkeeper, asking for goods to buy, and then one of the supplier of the shopkeeper came, and while I was buying from the shopkeeper, the supplier, stopped the sale because the supplier was in a hurry. You know how it works. These are vans selling. And so the shopkeeper asked me to wait. I was in a hurry, so I also left. Then I came back during the day. I found the shopkeeper doing nothing, with no clients, no suppliers, and I just felt the time is not well used, and maybe we could provide them with the app so they can order what they need for their procurement when there are no clients in their shop. And that's how Chari started in January 2020.
Wow. So a little over about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, right?
Yes.
And I want to go really deep on Chari, but before I do, there are like two things I want to touch upon. The first one is Wib, I think .co or WIB, I'm not sure, the startup studio. So you're, I think, a co-founder of a startup studio. I mean, how did that come about? And I'm really interested to know, how
Yeah.
it's set up and why you did that.
So that's a very good question. So Weeb.co is a venture builder or a startup studio. And
Hmm.
when I started becoming a tech entrepreneur in Morocco, and that was again 8-9 years ago, it was at the very, very beginning of the startup scene. Back at that time, we had no startups, or very few, no funding, and even nobody understood what was a startup, right? So you couldn't find any funding by even going to the bank and telling them I need money without balance sheets. That was impossible, right? Meeting with business angels, they didn't have the right mindset, and many of them were asking for 50% of the company with their first check, right? So put
And
yourself
those are
in
the
my
nice ones.
and those are the nice ones, exactly. So put yourself in the shoes of someone who's starting a company that need to burn some cash in a market that was just starting, and with no ways to find the funding. So the solution that came to my mind was to find a way to mutualize a back office. So what I did is basically I hired a team of developers, marketers, administrative people, and I told them all together we will be launching a few startups, and the front end will be exclusive to the company. So we will have salespeople for instance each startup, but us as a back end we will be mutualized between all the startups. So by doing this, I could lower the cost of the back end again because I couldn't afford to have developers for one single startup, because again the market of each use case was not good enough to be able to cover the costs of the back end. So by doing this, I could again find some partners in each venture, and we could again limit the costs of the back end, and that's basically how we started. And the first, I'll tell you, it's very funny, but the first company of this venture builder came from my experience at BCG. You know, when you are at BCG, they give you a lot of tools to be able to build your decks, your slides. When you see the slides of BCG, they are amazing, or McKinsey, they are amazing. That's because of the consultants that are great, but that's also because of the tools they give you to make perfect slides. So once you quit your job and you end up working for yourself, you don't have the same tools. So it becomes very difficult to create the same slides. So myself, I tried to contact the companies that were providing these tools, and I realized that many of them were outside of Morocco and didn't have any reseller in Morocco. So when I asked for a license, they said, we don't sell a license. You need at least 100 license for us to be able to sell it to you. So that's how I got the idea to become a reseller of these publishers. And we started with this, and then we became a reseller of Google Workspace. Back at that time, the name was Google Apps, and then it became Google Suite, and it's Google Workspace. And again, could make some monthly recurring revenue. This monthly recurring revenue started paying for, again, some back office, and then the back office, the idle time started being mutualized with other startups, and that's how one ID became a venture builder and a startup studio.
Right. So you would, or the venture builder staff would come up with the ideas, and then you'd either find a partner to fund the idea with you, and you have like your core team is set up from the beginning, or you'd fund it from the idle time that of the team that's building the first revenue
Listen,
creator, right? And it's just going like that.
both options happened.
Yeah,
We have, a startup studio has what we call a cemetery of startups, because we keep speaking about those who have
of course.
succeeded, but reality
Yeah,
is
yeah,
there are much more startups that failed. But these failing startups are obviously what fueled the successful ones, thanks to the learning you get from them. But in our case, we had various cases. We had cases of amazing founders that came to us saying, hey, I have this great idea, but I don't know how to execute it. And then we team up with them. In other cases, we found out a pain point. We had a use cases, but we were looking for a great entrepreneur to execute it. So we go find a kind of great guy who could, or great lady who could take care of it. A little bit the model of Rocket Internet. And just for the
right.
story, just for the story, I was very fortunate because when I started Chari, so we went through Y Combinator, and then we started pitching a few investors. And out of the investors we pitched, there were Rocket Internet and Global Founders Capital. And I ended up
Mm-hmm,
pitching an amazing guy called Oliver Somewhere, who is the founder
mm-hmm.
of again Rocket Internet, and then who was at the beginnings of Jumia. And I told him about my experience in the venture builder, what I've done before Shari, and I think it clicked because of this, or thanks to this, and he ended up investing $1 million in Shari,
Yep.
and I am very fortunate to have him in my cap table. He is someone who is very helpful, sharing whenever I send a report. He takes time to reply to it, give advice, and he's always to the point. And this guy is just a superstar.
Wonderful. You never know how things work out, how they add up in the end, right?
Exactly.
So before going deep into Shari, maybe I'll ask something related to you. So, I mean, you're an Ironman contestant. You have a pilot's license. You have a skydiving license. You know, you seem to like risky stuff. Is that like something that reflects on your business world as well?
So at first, I'm wondering where did you get all of these infos? Huh? I'm now asking myself if you're not working for some special secret services.
Yes, that's my
uh,
job. Yes, that's my day job.
that's your job. Indeed, indeed, I am. I love skydiving. I have jumped more than 200 times. I shouldn't be saying this to my VCs, otherwise they will add a risk.
This is another risk factor, right?
Fact, it's another risk factor. I have my private pilot license. I do paragliding also. I love motorcycle. So yes, I love extreme sports in general, and you know, running a business in a certain sense is an extreme sport, right? Because it comes with its dose of adrenaline. It comes with the emotional roller coaster, in which sometimes you feel very tired and sometimes you feel very pumped. Sometimes you feel that you are and in the same day, you could in the morning feel like if you were building the next unicorn, and 2 hours later you receive a message from a VC saying that he doesn't believe in your model, and then the rest of the day is black. And this is the same with sports. You know, when you run an Ironman, the those who succeed are not the fastest. They are not the most clever. They are not the richest. They are just those who never give up. And the secret of a successful startup is to never give up and keep learning from your mistakes and keep iterating and improving. And it's the same with this kind of sports. So there are a lot of similarities between running a successful startup and being able to complete an Ironman.
Indeed, I totally agree. And I think actually Mark Andreessen was the one who said he said something like that you being a startup founder is kind of you going between extreme fear and extreme exuberance in the same hour. You know, you it happens. You're always in one of these two states, never anything in between. So it is a bit of an extreme sport.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I'd like to dig deep now into Chari and the business model, and when it comes to cash flow management, I think a key thing for Chari is that it has a negative cash working capital kind of situation, because you have longer payment terms with your suppliers than you do with your customers. And so, how does this business model work, and how do you manage cash, and what can people learn from it in other
Again,
marketplaces?
you have some inside info, huh? So one day you'll have to tell me what are your sources. But
Just
so listen,
Google.
the model of a B2B e-commerce startup is so it's not to be a real marketplace. In our case, we are what we call a buy and sell model. So what we do is we go see the suppliers. So usually the multinationals, you know, the big names, the Procter and Gamble, the Unilever, the Mars, Kellogg's, Pringles, and we tell them, hey guys, when you are in a developed country, it's easy for you to cover the shops because you have only to speak with the central purchasing body of a big chain, and overnight you could be covering thousands of shops, right? But when you are in developing countries such as Morocco, then the traditional trade, which are the independent shops, are the bulk of the market. And just so you know, in Morocco, for instance, 85% of the fast moving consumer goods are sold through these small shops, and we have about 250,000 of them. And only 15% of the goods are sold in the big chains, in the big supermarkets. When in Europe or in the US, it's the other way around. When you have $100, you would spend $85 in Walmart and 15 in an independent shop. So what you tell to the suppliers is you need to find solutions to be able to cover these small shops. You won't be able to have 200, 250,000 clients. So why don't you work with distributors like us who will be able to provide you with coverage of the market, whether weighted distribution or numerical distribution? And two, because we are using technology, we can start providing you with data. And we will be the only wholesaler or the only distributor able to tell you, here are your goods, where they are sold, to whom, with what other categories, at what frequency, and so on and so on. So that's the added value we give to the suppliers. And we tell them, because we provide you this service, what we want is a distribution margin. And this distribution margin can move from 5 to 20%, depending on whether they give you front and back margins, whether they give you margin for data. If their goods are easily sold on the market, then it's a no-brainer that you will be able to sell them. Usually the margin is lower, but when it's a challenger, you tell them, if you want to gain market share, work with us, but give me a higher margin. And you basically negotiate with the suppliers, and you end up having what we call a mixed margin, right? And this mixed margin allows you to cover for first your variable costs. What are the variable costs? Mainly the logistics, which is the warehousing, the pick and pack preparation, and the delivery, which is basically last mile with one truck, usually one driver and one guy to handle the goods.
Yep.
So if your margin covers for your logistics, we say that our contribution margin one is positive. And that's a good sign, because it means that if you grow further, you won't be burning more, right? So a company that has a positive contribution margin one is a healthy company that can keep growing by investing money coming from their investors. Good. But then you obviously have some fixed costs that are basically the back office, with the tech team, with the management, with the buyers, and so and everything, right? Good. Now let's be fully transparent. The B2B e-commerce at the end of the day remains a distribution margin and distribution business, and and distribution businesses are well known for being businesses with very slim margins and not always healthy unit economics. So to answer your question about our working capital requirement, we are today very fortunate because we could grow on the market. We could get trust from our suppliers. Again, we are the only ones on the market to be able to provide the suppliers with the data. And as you know, data is king. So we could leverage this position by negotiating with our suppliers what we call payment terms. So with some suppliers, we pay them after 2 weeks, others 30 days, and we could even get 45 days to 60 days with some suppliers that really trust us and that really need us. You know, when you are a challenger, your SKUs are not well known on the market and you need a strong distributor, you sometimes accept long payment terms. So that's with the suppliers. But then the way the market is in Morocco is these small shopkeepers pay you cash on delivery, right? So
Yep.
we use again some artificial intelligence and to dig into our history of sales, and based on that, we are able to predict what's gonna be our sales in the future, so we can hold as inventory in our warehouses only something like 2 weeks of stocks, right? So when your uh, average payment terms are 30 days, you get paid cash on delivery, and your number of days of stock are 15 days, you end up in a situation where basically your working capital requirement becomes negative, and you have about 15 days of GMV as a treasury to keep funding your growth. So that's basically the situation of a few B2B e-commerce platforms, and we are very fortunate to be one of them. One of them today.
Yeah, it's the beauty of the model, and even Amazon in their first years, that's how they grew. They had this secret sauce that their
Yeah,
competitors didn't really understand. At the time, of course, Amazon didn't even hold inventory when they first started, so it was really, really negative
exactly.
working capital.
I'm gonna share with you a hint. I'm sure you don't have this info, even though you've looked all over. Uh, but one solution we found in order to negotiate with our suppliers longer payment terms was to, we had a lot of warehouses in Morocco to be able to do what we are doing. And one day we decided to turn our warehouses into shops. So what we did is we opened the warehouses to our clients. When before we were telling them, hey, we will be delivering the goods to you, we told them, hey, clients, if you come to us, you would be able to see the goods and get a discount on them because we will offset the logistic costs
Delivery, yeah,
and the delivery, which makes sense, right? We started
yeah,
saving on last mile, so
yep.
we shared basically the economy with the clients. But by doing this, we moved from being a distributor to becoming a retailer, because the day you have shops and you open shops to clients, whether they are B2B or B2C, you are becoming a retailer. So we went
Exactly.
back to suppliers and we told the suppliers, hey, before we were in a grid where you were considering us as distributors with a certain margin, but no, guys, we are a retailer and we have costs of shops. So we need an additional margin that comes with longer payment terms. And that's how basically we started negotiating the terms and could make them longer.
Nice. So that is something I haven't seen in any research, indeed. Although I saw a hint of it. I saw like one of the articles had a photo of what seemed like a shop, with the Chari logo, and I thought, that's interesting. Do they have shops? So now I know the truth, right? I know the
Yeah, so
secret.
this is a good
Yeah.
example. This is a shop we opened.
Okay. Wonderful. It looks really very well branded and it looks beautiful to walk into. So, all right. I'll go into maybe another aspect of the strategy and how you differentiate yourself. So you have several large competitors, regionally speaking, maybe not in Morocco as such, but regionally speaking, and potential competitors that might move into the market, of course. And you seem to have a different kind of strategic approach from them in the sense that in several ways. And one of them is that maybe the one I want to start with is that some of them have a heavy asset, an asset heavy kind of approach, and you have an asset low approach. You're renting, you're not buying. So why are you doing this? Why did you take this different approach?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll say that we have two categories of competitors. We do have so the apps like us, great players that have raised some money and that have expanded to Morocco, or local startups that could raise some money and who are today competing with us. I don't really call them competitors because together we are educating the market. So for me, a competitor is when the market is already fully consumed and you are fighting for market share. But when all together you are building the market and making it grow, it's called partners, right? So I call them partners, and these guys with me are helping, educating the users, telling them that using an app is better for them. So this is the first category of people with whom we are teaming up to create a great market in Morocco. The second category is what I call myself the wholesalers. Wholesalers are usually independent workers who usually own one or two trucks, one garage, in which basically they store their goods, and they have a list of clients, usually 20, 30 shops that they call, and they say, what do you need today? And they go get them the goods from a local cash and carry store and bring it to the shops. Obviously, these guys have lower cost than us because their trucks are in average 15 years old. um, they don't usually pay taxes and so on. So my today my real challengers are these wholesalers who usually own their cars. In my very case, and to answer your question, we've been raising money from our investors to build what we are building. And again, the investors want to see us as an asset free, or I say asset light, because we do own some assets. Our stock is an asset, but indeed we
Yes.
don't own trucks, we don't own warehouses. And the reason is we want to remain very agile, nimble, and light. And we believe that the money we've raised is better used to be spent on client acquisition. When in any case logistic can still be externalized, and there exists some 3PLs down in the market, and the real added value is not with handling the goods or delivering the goods. The real added value in our business is again to acquire users, to make them loyal to you, to give them an amazing user experience, and to make sure to add additional revenue, added value services on top of it, or revenue streams, such as fintech, as an example.
Right. And so, I mean, that makes sense. You want to get the most bang for your dollars invested, and the way to do that is to be asset light. Um, Another maybe way that you're differentiating, or I think you're approaching the market differently, is through your acquisitions that I've seen. And maybe we can start with the acquisition of Carney in 2021. You know, it's providing credit and bookkeeping for the same customer that you have. And I think actually it's a baby of the startup of the venture builder as well. So it's kind of an entry point into your customers, but from not from the side of selling them goods, but rather from providing them a service that they had. And I think they had like 20,000 or something like that customers already. I can't remember the number. So my research, I should have documented it better. So why did you acquire Carney, and why did you take this approach? And isn't it like an extra load on Chari that maybe doesn't like go into the serve the main mission of the company?
It's a very good question, and thank you for asking it. Again, Shari is B2B e-commerce. And again, when we wanted to acquire users, your first our first thoughts were to basically communicate online. So we built this amazing app, and we went on social networks, made some videos on YouTube's, and started displaying them in order to acquire users. And it worked quite well when it comes to the downloads. We had a great ads, a great team doing growth, and basically we could lower the cost of the download to a few cents, and we felt like we made it. And indeed, we could get hundreds of thousands of downloads, even more than the number of stores we had in Morocco. So we just felt easy to cover the whole country just with social networks. But then we realized that between a download and a client making an order, there is a world of steps. The guy, needs to create an account, add his location, add his number, get an OTP, uh, obviously upload his infos. Then he has to go through again the products, selects what he wants, add it to a basket. Then he has to decide how he wants to pay, when he wants to deliver it. it's a nightmare for a population that is not tech savvy. I mean, when you build something in the Silicon Valley or in Southeast Asia, you can expect from your users to be fully autonomous and be able to download your app and use it till the end. But again, when you are in Morocco and you know that 30% of the population still is illiterate, it's quite difficult to ask them to do all of these steps by themselves. Even though we made some tutorials, some videos, it was quite difficult. So then we had no other choice than going on the field, and we sent what we call ambassadors, who are sales reps, and their job was to go meet with the shopkeepers, knock on their door, take their phone, install the app, create an account, and take them through the whole process so they can be educated to starting using our apps. And even with these guys on the ground, it took the shopkeepers around 4 to 6 months to be fully autonomous, because at the very beginning they use your app as a catalog to see your prices, to see your uh, goods and promotions of the day, and then they start calling you on the phone asking if you can deliver goods to you, because they need to feel that you really exist. And then when they know you, they start sending you WhatsApp voice messages. So we have a team at the office whose the job is to listen to the WhatsApp voice messages and turn them into orders. And then after 3 4 months, that's when they become fully independent, when you explain to them that they can get some discounts by using the app, that they can use the wallets and get some cash back on the wallets. But in the lifetime journey, again, um, so when we realized this, we understood that scaling by this way of acquiring users, which is having people on the ground, would be too long and too difficult. And again, when we were in Casablanca, it was easy to do it. But then we covered Casablanca and we wanted to expand to other cities of Morocco. And as you know, Morocco is a big country. So we started thinking, how do we acquire more users without having people on the ground, knowing that marketing for Chari was almost impossible. And that's how we heard about models. And myself, I traveled a lot in Southeast Asia. And the beauty of building a company in Morocco is that you don't need a crystal ball to find out what are your next steps. You don't need to be very innovative. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to buy an airplane ticket, go to South America or Southeast Asia, see what these folks are doing there, get some inspiration, and come back. And usually your innovation comes from the adaptation. So I went to India, I saw these amazing startups that were doing what obviously we are doing, such as Udan, such as Katabuk. And I have been told that client acquisition online is much easier, faster, and cheaper with bookkeeping apps and credit book apps than e-commerce. And the reason is very simple to understand. Bookkeeping or credit book is a very easy app to use. It's like a calculator. The guys download the app and then it opens a calculator. Whenever they sell something on credit, they add what they have sold. And whenever they are paid back, they remove it from the tab. And at the end, anyone, even if you don't know how to read and write, you can still use the app. So we just felt, okay, we have to build our own credit book. So we would use it as a way of acquiring users. And then we discovered that the company that was already doing this, some folks from BCG, built an amazing app that already back at that time had thousands of users. So we contacted them, we met with them, we explained what we were doing, and we decided to team up with them and acquired the app that is a successful app called Carney. And today, Carney is for us our way of acquisition. So we market Carney, we get users on Carney, but we can't monetize it because it has no revenue model, no business model. However, the same call center we have at the office, I told you, who listen to the WhatsApp calls to turn them into orders. When they don't, when they have time, what they do is they call the database of the users of Carney, and we tell them, look, you've been using Carney for months, it's free, you should be happy about it. No, what we offer you is to start using Chari. So we cross-sell them. We cross the users from the credit book to the e-commerce, and we make money through e-commerce. So we acquire users through credit book, we cross-sell them to e-commerce, and we make money on e-commerce. So that's first objective of Carney. And then second objective of Carney is, so Chari allows us to have the sales in of the goods, of the shops. We know, thanks to Chari, what the shops are buying, but we have no clue about what the shops are selling. So Carney is giving us the data about the sales out of the shops. So it closes the loop. And today, the company we are running is the only company knowing exactly what the shop is buying, what the shop is selling. So we are able to get some data points. With these data points, we are able to credit score the shops. So if we want to give BNPL solutions, or if we want to give payment terms to some shops, we obviously use the data points, so we know who are the shops who are lending the most money to their end users, and we can basically move to that space without taking too much risk. So Carney, to summarize, a way of acquiring users, a way to credit score users. So at the end of the day,
Yep,
there are a lot of synergies with Chari, and we
absolutely.
are very happy about this move.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool to understand, the underpinnings of this acquisition, and I think it's really important to highlight how you had to really be adaptive and and understand how customer acquisition works for Moroccan market specifically, rather than trying to do what people, what the blog posts from US companies are saying, we should do. And I'm going to take that best practice you did by traveling to India, maybe in my next company, and see try to go there and learn, because they are similar, at the same time a little ahead. I would expect also Latin America might be a nice place to visit, but at least in India they speak English, of course. Anyway, okay, so that's wonderful. I've really benefited from all you've said so far, and there's something though I don't understand about your strategy. So on Shari's website, it says you're serving the small retailers in French-speaking Africa to procure inventory and get financial services, etc. I mean, respectfully, I don't understand the French-speaking part. So, I mean, if, for example, the Nigerian market is more, or the Kenyan market, say, is more similar in structure and in legal and stuff to the Moroccan market, does it make sense to ignore it and go to another market that's less similar to Morocco? Because it's not French-speaking. Why French-speaking?
Okay, another good question here. A few reasons, but your question is very legitimate, because you're right. I'll tell you, the English-speaking countries of Africa have a bigger market, right? That's where the low-hanging fruits are. And technically speaking, we should go first to English-speaking countries. Huh? However, there are a few reasons why we are sticking to French-speaking Africa. Reason one is, first of all, we don't have competition in French-speaking Africa, right? The big names of the region have raised money in Kenya, in Nigeria, in Egypt, and these guys are staying there, and I think that we'll stay there for the coming years. And hopefully, by the time they will be coming to Morocco, to Francophone Africa, we would have saturated the market, and they won't have any other choice than teaming up with us, maybe through M&A, instead of going there greenfield. So, no. So, first reason is no competition. When these guys have raised a lot of money, when you come from Morocco and you speak French and you are native in French, obviously it's harder for you to raise funds. And when your markets are smaller, it's harder for you to raise big funding. So I don't want to compete one day with Wasoko that raised $150 million from Tiger recently, when ourselves again we raised the 1/10 of this. So that's reason one. Reason number two is the fact that we keep moving into French speaking countries allows us first to find similar markets, because at the end of the day the consumption habits are the same between Morocco, Tunisia, Ivory Coast, because the heritage of France is still here in terms of consumption, but also in terms of legal framework. So when you ask for a payment license, for instance, it's usually the same process with the same kind of documents, with the same laws, that it has been inspired from the French law, right? And that it helps. And as an example, even with commercially speaking, and that's maybe a third reason, but commercially speaking, myself, when I negotiate with the multinational, payment terms and again margins, I usually negotiate with not the country managers, but usually the managers of the region. So the sales guys in charge of the region. And usually this region is called Francophone Africa. And so many times I heard the guy telling me, "Oh, I wish Chari was in Mauritania, for instance." I never
Yeah.
heard these guys telling me, "I wish Chari was in Nigeria," because Nigeria is not
It's
under
not the
them,
region.
right?
Right.
So when the first time I heard, "I wish Chari was in Tunisia," I said, "Oh, that's a hint." And then second time I said, "Oh, that's a coincidence." But then third time I said, "Hey, that's an opportunity." So that's why we decided to keep digging into Francophone Africa. And maybe one last reason is, so within our cap table we have an investor called Orange. Orange is the French telecom operator. What these guys do is, obviously they are very strong in France and they keep expanding in Francophone Africa. And in Francophone Africa, the way people consume telcos is through what we call prepaid cards. In developed countries, you have plans that you pay later,
Yep.
but in our countries, you pay before you consume,
Mostly prepaid.
and
Yep.
mostly prepaid. And the distribution channels are usually the small grocery stores. So reality is, me and Orange do handle the same shops. So, and that, by
Got
the
it.
way, that's why they invested in our pre-seed, in our seed, in our Series A. They even call it the Series A, mainly because um, they are today using us for the go-to market. So for me, when I expand to Ivory Coast, for instance, or if I go tomorrow to Senegal, I'm just one phone call away from the country manager of Orange, to whom I'm saying, "Hey, let's team up to cover your shops. Give me your database so I can, as of tomorrow, start selling the scratch cards to them." So that's an example.
Got it.
We also got in our cap table an amazing group out of Mauritania, out of Madagascar, called Action. This Action is an amazing telecom operator in Francophone Africa, an amazing fintech player in the region, and they are helping us also a lot with our expansion. So let's say that our synergies are with Francophone Africa.
Yeah.
We also speak French. My team speak French, and at the end of the day, we keep this French culture.
Got it. Yeah. No, I mean, so you have inherent competitive advantages when you're focusing on Francophone Africa, and you've made them very clear. And thank you for that. Okay, so now going maybe to the fundraising aspect of startups, and I mean, Chari is a YC company, and after YC, not long after, you were able to raise your first round. I think it was $5 million. And I wanted to ask you about YC. Has it made a difference to you as an experience or not? Honestly,
Uh, Again, put yourself in the shoes of a startupper who started his venture in Morocco, right? And Morocco is just starting as a startup scene. Again, when I started, there was nothing, and I had first to explain what was a startup. Thankfully, things have changed today. The local administration has realized how important could be the startups, and they are doing a lot of things for startups, and we are very thankful to them because things are changing rapidly. But still, you remain in Francophone Africa, in a relatively small country. So when you speak to an American VC, he doesn't really consider you unless you've gone through YC. So of course, YC was for us an amazing spotlight, and it brought light on us. And I would have never spoken to Oliver somewhere from Rocket Internet if I didn't go through YC. We also have Harvard University as an investor in Chari, so it tells you a lot about the prestige YC is bringing you, on top of a lot of other things. I don't want to say that YC is only helping you with raising funds. That's not true. YC is bringing you a lot of other things. First, you get to know amazing startups. You realize that you are not the only one, again, in this emotional roller coaster, and that helps you a lot to discover that in this journey you are not by yourself. um, and it also, and that's very important, that's maybe what has helped me the most at YC. it it makes you meet and see some very inspirational people, and people who've made it. So when you get into YC, you get into a call with the founder of Airbnb, and you realize that the guy is so down to earth, and he is so normal. He's just like you, just that he made it. And you realize that if he made it, I mean, you can keep dreaming of also making it. So that inspirational talks you get from them gives you a lot of motivation. And I think motivation is also a question of iteration. The more you speak with amazing people, the more you get this ambition and you get this motivation to keep working hard and to keep having amazing objectives and aiming the moon. So YC is an amazing environment to help you iterate your motivation and ambition. So thanks
Interesting.
YC again for everything. But they are very costly, and they take a lot from your cap table,
Oh
but
yeah,
it's fully deserved. Fully deserved. Yes.
right. Well, yeah. I mean, it has to be deserved, right? If it's that expensive. Can you tell us more about, I mean, how you got into YC, how you went through that experience? I mean, your operation is in Morocco, so I mean, YC is all the way, in California. How did you manage that?
Uh, I'll be transparent. I wasn't very familiar with YC. Again, I was doing my business in Morocco. Um, but then I my first my first investor. So basically, Plug and Play came to Morocco. I don't know if you are familiar with Plug and Play Tech Center, but it's a
Yes.
kind of accelerator. They were brought to Morocco by an amazing university called the University Mohammed VI Polytechnic that started creating a tech ecosystem, and they brought PNP to help them build it. So we were very fortunate to
Nice.
get accelerated at PNP. So PNP came at the same time as Orange. They were our first pre-seed investors, with a third fund called SPE Capital. Um, and then thanks to PNP and Orange, I could discover the world of accelerators. And Orange took me then to a place in Paris called Station F. And Station F is the biggest campus of startups in the
Yep.
world. It's an amazing place. If you haven't visited it, you should definitely go. So we were the first Moroccan company to be accepted in a very selective program called the Founders Program of Station F. That was back in end of 2020, so 1 year at the end of the year in which we started. Um, and there, I started meeting with amazing French founders who started telling me about YC. So I first applied by the end of 2021 of 2020, to YC. So my VCs made a recommendation for me. So I was very fortunate. I got my first interview with YC. That went very bad. So we got rejected actually.
Really?
The first time we
Okay.
applied, we got rejected. However, when they rejected us, they sent us a list of reasons why they rejected us. So with my co-founder, who happens to be also my wife, we took all of these reasons and we worked on them. And whenever we were solving one and checked the box, we were sending back a message to the YC partner who rejected us by saying, "Look, you said that we couldn't do that. We've done it. Done." And we've done this over the coming 6 months until we went through the whole list. And then before we replied, we sent a message by saying, "Hey, we've crossed all the boxes. No, we are replying. We want another interview." And he was nice enough to help us get the second interview. And obviously, thanks to our experience from the first one, and again, it's a matter of iteration. And this is the definition of a startup.
Yep.
When you get rejected, when you fail, when you fall down, again, learn, iterate, stand up, and try again. So that's exactly what happened with us with YC. We failed the first time, learned from our mistake, went back to them and told them, "Hey guys, we fixed the issues. We are now ready." And again, I think what they liked in us is the fact that we try it again and again. So if there are founders listening to us today, never take no as an answer. Keep trying until they say yes. So we kept pushing, and they finally accepted us. So we were part of the
Cool.
YC 2021 batch. First, so we were two Moroccan companies in this batch, two first companies to get accepted in YC
Nice.
ever. Very proud of it, and obviously it changed our the rest of our story.
Yeah. And I would say even before joining, it changed your story because as you were crossing off that list of issues, you were improving Chari, actually. So yeah, YC helped you even from that. And really, a startup is a learning machine. It's just about learning, making mistake, learning, improving, making mistake, learning, improving, persisting until you get there, so to speak. So that's a great story. And it's incredible that you have Harvard as well, because I mean, the Harvard endowment, I mean, they're investing billions of dollars, not millions of dollars, and they're usually investing in the investors, in the VC funds who then invest in startups. For them to invest directly in a startup, they must have really believed in you.
I'll give you an inside info. And
Uh huh.
again, you've done a lot of work, but I'm sure you don't have this one. Um, so of course, we are very, very fortunate to have Harvard Management Fund in our cap table. But on top of having invested in Chari, they've also written a business case about Chari.
Oh,
So we
nice.
are also proud of having our own business case at Harvard Business School. So MBA students, we also received a few MBA students in Morocco. Some of them did a kind of internship in Chari,
Nice.
and we have an amazing business case about Chari, and I'm happy to share it here with you. You can go on hbs.chari.com and you will be able to read the business case Harvard University has written
Cool.
about Chari. So it's a great honor,
So yeah,
and we are happy.
you've joined the business hall of fame. Cool. Really cool. So going back maybe a little to the beginning of the story, and you're this small startup, hardly any funding, no customers almost, and you're going to P&G to tell them we want to be your distributor. It's like, how does that come about? How did you convince them? How did you get those first suppliers?
So at the very beginning, we couldn't convince any supplier. Nobody wanted to work with us because nobody understood what we were going to do, and nobody wanted to disrupt their go-to-market strategy. And when you are a multinational, you want to make sure that you won't, affect any of your sales.
Yep.
Because nobody wanted to work with us, what we did was very simple. We went to a local cash and carry store, a big Carrefour shop out in the outskirts. And what we did, and maybe I shouldn't say that, but that's our starts. But we waited in the parking lot, looking at what the buyers of these cash and carry stores are usually B2B stores that are again outside of the cities where the shopkeepers go for the procurement. So we
Hmm.
stayed in this parking lot. We started looking into the baskets, the trolleys when they were putting the goods in their trunks. We were looking what were the goods, just to have a hint of what we should start buying.
Uh-huh.
And then we started printing some flyers by saying to the shopkeepers, hey, next time you don't need to come back to the shop, just use our app, so you can order and we will deliver the goods to you for free at your place. Then it didn't really work because the guys didn't know how to use the app. So then we replaced the flyers, the same flyers. Instead of saying, hey, use the app, we said, hey, call us on the phone. That's how
Right.
it picked up. So we had a few customers starting calling us. When they called us, basically they were telling us what they wanted, and we had a team within the shop buying immediately the goods. And then we were delivering the goods the very same day to the client without getting any margin. Obviously, we were buying at X and reselling at X, so we were subsidizing the delivery costs. But at
Yep.
least it helped us learn what were the expectations of the users, learn what were the goods they wanted to buy, get some data and insights, until we got kicked, by the way, by this shop. When the manager of the shop realized what we were doing, they kicked us out. Then we had to go to another shop
Another
and we
one.
did experience. And then after 6 months of work and after having burned some money, we went back to see the suppliers, and we came to them with this business intelligence app that had some data, by saying, look, guys, what we are offering to you is not only a distribution service that any other distributor or any other wholesaler can offer. What we are offering to you is a market intelligence tool that will help you find out basically what's going on the trade and on the traditional trade. Because before us they were blind on what was going on. And in Morocco, some goods are being smuggled from Algeria or from Mauritania. Some goods are being exported, so they had no clue about what was going on. And thanks to our technology, again, because we have digitized the whole value chain from receiving the orders to preparing the orders to delivering the orders, we are able basically to tell them in details what's going on the trade. And that's what started helping us um, convince the first suppliers to work with us. And then when you get your first suppliers, it's obviously much easy to get the second one, like with the VCs, right? The most important, I mean, the most difficult part is to convince the first VC. Then the second VC, take into account that you have convinced the first one. It's the same with the supplier, right? When you go see uh, whoever, by saying, look, L'Oreal has signed a partnership with us, and look at the contract, then they say, okay, if L'Oreal has worked with these guys, maybe they are solid, maybe they are serious, maybe we can trust them. And that's how things move ahead.
Really cool. So, as expected, I have so many things that I'd like to cover, and time is kind of running out, so I'm going to have to choose what we cover. So, let me ask you, maybe the next question is, do you consider Chari more of a supply chain company or a fintech company? Because I see you're adding more and more services in that area.
It's a good question. So Chari is before everything a tech company, okay? And then Chari is using the logistic vertical or the supply chain vertical as what I call myself a Trojan horse. Again, remember the unit economics of the supply chain are slim. However, it's an amazing vertical to acquire users, to grow fast, and to build trust. And without this trust, you can't do anything. So we are a fintech company that is using supply chain to acquire users and trust and then monetize them through fintech services. That's how I call myself. At the very beginning, we were an e-commerce company with embedded fintech. We could get a license from the Central Bank of Morocco to become a fintech player and a payment institution. So now we've became a fintech company with embedded e-commerce.
Interesting. Okay, so maybe a final thing I want to ask you is, of course, the question that I suppose some investors have asked you and many people have asked you, which is, about starting a company with your wife. Of course, there are like people who've done that before. So like the founders of Canva were in a relationship and now they're married. The Stripe founders are brothers, etc. But I can see how it can get complicated. So I can see how a conversation can start with, "Hey, you didn't attend our son's soccer match like you promised," and then it can go, "And you didn't prepare for that board meeting well enough," and things can get complicated. So, any best practices for starting a company with families, with family members?
I think the example you gave about, hey, you didn't attend the soccer match of our son is a question that is much more asked to a founder that is not working with his partner. Mainly because a partner would never understand what's the life of a founder until she or he experience it. And
Good
again,
point.
because my wife works with me, she know exactly why sometime I have to miss the soccer play of my son. And she is much more understanding. And sometime I keep thanking God that we work together, because at least I don't need to explain to her why I am such in a bad mood, or why things are difficult. I think nobody can understand what is the life of a founder if he's not or she's not a founder himself or herself. However, as you said, it's not that easy, obviously, to work in a couple, as a couple, unless you put in place the right rules. And with my wife, who happens also to be a strategy consultant, and she used to work for McKinsey,
Exactly.
so we have the same frameworks. At least we think the same way, and we have the same way of logic. So we don't fight too much about logic. We fight more about the content. The and but the rules are very simple. We make sure to uh, never speak about home at work, and we make sure to never speak about work at home. So once back home, we take care of our kids. We have two kids together, and we try not to bring up, the topics of the day. And same at work, when we are out with our colleagues, nobody knows. I mean, you couldn't feel that we are married unless you know it, obviously. So that's rule number one. And maybe rule number two, which is also very important, even though more difficult to put in place, is we try to separate our the things we cover. So Sophia is in charge of the
Mm.
operations, and I try not to, uh, you know, get or overlap with her duties. Obviously, we have
Sure.
meetings in which everyone has to report to the other, but I don't overlap with her operations, and she doesn't overlap with mine. Myself, again, I am in charge of the fintech expansion. I am in charge of fundraising, of the strategy, of the investors relationships, and she doesn't overlap with me. And by separating again the duties, there is less room for fighting, right? For fight.
Right.
So that's basically the two secrets of the fact that we've been working together for almost 4 years without any major issues.
And I
And
think, I mean,
also,
the second secret is, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
and one last thing, maybe one third secret. We do a lot of team building together. So I convinced her to start skydiving with me. She has jumped
Ah,
over 50 times, and I'm very proud of her
wow.
because she could overtake her fears. She also passed successfully her private pilot license. So that's also was great, and she did it. I know that she did it for me. So we prepared also some Ironman together, and we are very fortunate to share a lot of passion. And I think that these passions are what are helping us again overcome all the challenges of the business.
Beautiful. And I think actually the last two also could work for any co-founders, to separate responsibilities, and also to have like team stuff that you do together. So, even though I have so many questions, but we're running out of time, so I'll just go into the quick fire round of questions. So basically, I ask a quick question, you give me a quick answer, and then we wrap up. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
go
So
ahead.
the first one is, what book or books do you like to recommend to others?
I'll say one book, The Power of Habits. It's amazing
Hmm.
how so Power of Habits, and you have another one called Atomic Habits. Basically,
Yep.
it's a personal development book that allows you to be a better yourself by putting things in steps and making it easier. And I have been applying this to me, and it seems to be working.
Cool. Okay. How do you unwind? How do you relax? How do you stay energized?
I told you, thanks to my
Yeah.
extreme
Jumping from
sports.
planes.
Even when you jump from a plane at 4 kilometer altitude, one jump
Yeah.
only make you forget about all of your stress.
Yeah.
Try
It
it.
changes your
Try it
perspective
and get back
completely.
to me.
Actually, it does sound like an interesting thing. President, the senior George Bush, celebrated his 90th birthday by jumping from a plane. So I hope I don't wait till my 90th birthday. So, okay. Third question: who do you think we should have as a guest on the podcast?
Oh, please bring someone from Francophone Africa. I think
Yeah.
Anglophone Africa is overrepresented, and
Okay.
unfortunately in Francophone Africa underrepresented. There are a lot of amazing founders there that deserve light on them. Unfortunately, they are not receiving as much again visibility as the Anglophones ones. So please, I
Yeah.
can help you, but
Absolutely.
there are a lot of amazing ones. Maybe one guy
Yeah.
that you know, Noordin Tayibi from Yasir.
Yeah.
I will introduce you. He's an amazing guy.
We already interviewed him in the first season. So I mean, we've already interviewed, and he
Oh,
actually
really?
recommended that I speak to you. So
Oh, okay.
so
So
I will follow up with
you,
you though. Yeah, I really appreciate
okay.
that, and
There is an amazing
I love,
one called
yeah.
there is an amazing one called Bola, who runs a company, a health tech company called Susu. Together, we made it to the
Hmm.
top 10 African business heroes. That was 2 days ago in Kigali.
Hmm.
She is a lady, super pumped,
Perfect.
and deserves to be on your
Yeah,
talk show.
I'll definitely follow up with you. So is there anything else you want to say? Is there, if you want people to reach you, how can they reach out to you to discuss business maybe, or expansion or whatever? Is there something you want to
So
talk about?
no, I think the best way to reach out to me is through LinkedIn. I'm
Right.
usually very reactive. I think it's an amazing platform to stay in touch with people. It's very professional.
Mhm.
So yes, please feel free to add me as a contact. Feel free to send me private messages. I usually answer them in the weekends. So happy to get in touch with anyone who
Sure.
loves fintech and e-commerce. That's patience for me. So happy to get to know more people in that field.
So, thank you very much for your time, Ismail. I always like to end the podcast on a gratitude. So, just if you can share with us, what is a gift someone has given you that has had a large effect on your life, positive effect?
Wow. Listen, I keep getting gifts every single day because I keep getting feedbacks from my family, from my team. And I think the best gift you could ever get is to start listening to people around you who are telling you how to be a better person. And and by being a better person, you become a much happier person. So we don't usually realize it, but we keep receiving a lot of gifts per day. The question is, how can you make the most of them?
I totally agree. And thank you very much, Ismail, for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a real pleasure to get to know you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Startups Arabia podcast. If there was something you really liked about what the guest said today, reach out to them on social media and tell them what you liked. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? You don't want to miss any of our great upcoming episodes. Also, please rate us and give us comments on our social media accounts so that we know how to improve. And also tell us what you like. We don't mind hearing that either. Until next time, this was your host, Ali's Whale.